So many rocket boosters. Just give it a gentle little tap, and we'll make it out of here. Just by... It's pod racing now, boys! So originally I had an idea about just doing a bullet point list here, and trying to go through one by one, explaining everything in great detail, but that just sounds like an absolutely abysmal way to discuss building. So I'm just going to try to build you a kind of generic, maybe average PvP car around machine guns, and I can explain my reasoning around that, and maybe you guys can extrapolate that to the larger whole. I don't know. This is the thing with video making, is that sometimes it's more of an art form more than a science, and that irritates the living truck out of me. So I guess the first thing to do when you're making your own car, let's just start off with basic frames. So in this case, we'll use the light frame since we're going to be using this medium cabin here. If I had a heavier cabin with more hauling power, I might choose something different, but lighter it is. Then we're going to leave ourselves a little space underneath the side of our cabin. We can actually use that to hide a bunch of stuff. Best things to hide underneath here though, fuel barrels. Fuel barrels are perfect to be hidden underneath your cabin, since underneath your cabin, you're rarely ever going to get shot, so perfect place to hide a lot of things, and it keeps it right out of the line of fire. But let's actually see what we're going to be utilizing here. So I think we're going to be using a couple of cords here. And what else could we use here? I'm thinking we could also use a cooler since we have the extra power. And let's throw in a Maxwell as well, because having a nice radar that has the detection radius, the enemies at cover, and the ally transmission radius all in one package, super nice, super useful. People underestimate radars so much to the point of it being kind of absurd. But we're actually going to need to hide those in the back a little bit more. So let's get some more frames here and hide some stuff in the back. And yeah, that's actually going to put our cabin up front. And that's okay to have your cabin up front when you're trying to protect stuff in the back. The only time when you may want to put your cabin a little bit further back is when you have way more durable weapons. So say if you're like trying to use something like a caucus or a cannon build, you might want to put your cabin a little bit further back since your weapons can take a hit. But all of these machine guns right here, or drones, they do not have a lot of HP. For example, these machine guns right here, the LM54 cords, they only have a durability of 60 right now. So they ain't terribly buff. But they're very low energy and have decent damage and rate of fire, so we can easily put 3 of them on our car. Gives us minimal power score, throw in a nice low power score radiator to help boost up our guns. Keeps us within a manageable power score. We don't want to go too high. If we were going to go higher, maybe I want to have more firepower on our car, but I think right now we should be okay. And as you can see, plopping on some redundant wheels on this build. These are all the steering wheels, so it's kind of nice right there. The reason why we want to use multiple wheels here is that in case one of them gets shot off, we can still actually drive fairly effectively. And the reason why we're using these smaller wheels instead of larger ones is because this cabin doesn't have a lot of power. If you can take a look right there, the power only has 4 bars filled out, so it's not terribly high. It's higher than, say, a Duster cabin that has very minimal power, but it's definitely much less than something like a Docker or even a Humpback if you want to see maximum power. But yeah, we could also use even smaller wheels if you wanted more power. But these wheels have nice tonnage for their power consumption, so why not? If we run out of tonnage though, we can always slap on a nice tonnage of 750 non-steering wheel. Reduces our dexterity, but does help out in the end. So what to do now with our guns? I'm thinking we should actually try to hide our guns just a tad bit. The guns themselves are a little bit weak as mentioned before, so let's try mounting them somewhere in the back of the car. The reason why we're using these buggy parts, you see there's a whole collection of them, including the gun mount, is the reason why is that they actually have bullet pass-through, as indicated by that 90% mixed with the 2 bullets right there. That just means 90% of all bullet damage or projectile damage just passes straight through it, so it's much more durable than traditional armor pieces like this that only have like 4 durability, but take 100% of all damage or are much larger. So that's a pretty good beefy part there. So let's go ahead and strap on a couple of machine guns here. Beautiful. And see, now the machine guns themselves are actually kind of nicely hidden behind the cabin. Good little place to start. But we need another place to hide our third and final machine gun. So I'm thinking we could probably do something like a elevated platform in the back. Nothing terribly stylish, but it does actually boast great protection for our gun. And we're going to give itself a redundant mount since it's a little bit more exposed. Usually with most weapons, you want to have a redundant mount of some sort, just because it may get blown off. So having that little bit of extra security with your weapons is quite nice. But right now, we're just going to leave it as is and see if we can fix it later on down the line. A lot of this game is just experimenting with your armor placement, since armor is a lot of the features of the build. I guess in this case, we can also go ahead and slap that down there along with our Maxwell, since those can fit in quite nicely right there. They fit in just fine, and they actually are kind of slim. Pretty neat. Although our fuel barrel there is looking a little bit more exposed than I would like. So let's go ahead and cover that up with some nice medium tier armor. Actually, you know what? Since it is a little bit more sensitive, let's throw on some heavier parts here. So we got this small tank side part from the Steppenwolf faction. Let's go ahead and slap that on there. These parts are hyper vulnerable to explode, so covering it up helps out a great deal. We'll go ahead and slap on an APC part there as well to cover it up on both sides. So now that it actually is covered on all sides, they can still shoot through the frame to the actual barrels themselves, but it's going to be much less likely that all of the bullets are going to directly hit them, so it makes it much safer. Alright, let's work on this back a little bit more here and see if we can protect it just a tad bit more. So let's go ahead and slap on another armor piece here. It's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and slap on another armor piece on the back, see if we can cover it up just a tad bit more. There we go. But looks like our machine gun up top is a little bit exposed there. So let's see if we can fix that. Easiest way to do it would be to put down something like a fender. A fender is a great part because it kind of just like hugs those machine guns real nice and tightly. Usually I don't fire behind me too often, so I'm not too worried about obscuring our firing angles. If you actually want to know what mounting points there are, you can press the F key on computer, and you can see where you can mount frames and tires, or these regular solid orange squares indicate where you can just mount regular parts. So it's quite a useful tip to figure out. That, and it actually shows you the firing angles of your gun. So if you're ever trying to figure out what depression angle is, you could probably just put that on there and that'll give you a good idea. Because right now, if we actually wanted to fire, we can actually notice that our firing angles are a little bit narrow, but our machine guns still can actually fire quite nicely. We could potentially improve that even more. If we wanted to actually increase our firing angles, we could actually angle up our backside a little bit. So what we could do is that we could actually implement large wheels in the back. Now the big thing about these large wheels is, well, they're larger, of course. So as you can see, our medium wheels are not even touching the ground. So what happens is that when we test drive, our car actually flops forward a little bit, and now we can shoot much closer to our car, which does actually help us out if we're ever in a pickle with a rammer. So I think we'll try that. That'll help us out with some firing angles. Not to mention too, look at their tonnage. Ooh, actually those are the non-steering variety. Let's throw on the steering variety there. I think that'll help us out a great deal more with dexterity. I'll say 1600 is pretty nice, but 900 is just about as nice too. It's more than double of what these are, but they have more power consumption. But as you can see, our acceleration and tonnage in the corner here is still pretty okay. Our current tonnage is around 6400, which is nearly the entire car, while our acceleration is still pretty nice and high. We still have our max speed in its entirety. So it's a good thing to balance. Max speed is always a difficult thing to balance when you have large cars. But I want to protect these medium wheels a little bit more. These things are a tad bit squishy. But there's also the backside to protect too, and the front side too. This thing's going to need a little bit of loving as well. Why don't we go ahead and actually slap on a bumper on here, because we are going to be running into people, so we're going to need that protection there. A bumper is always an excellent choice. You could also just go ahead and add more armor, or you could always go for the more aggressive approach and add on hatchets, which the benefit to these things is that they do a great deal more damage. In this case, we're going to undermount our hatchets because in this way, if someone tries to ram us, we actually may have the chance to flip them up and go underneath their car. So it actually allows us to do a bit of ramming. So let me show you what I'm meaning. Alright, so I'm now over here positioned by my car. And if we actually try to ram our car here, we actually do kind of get underneath it and wedge it a little bit. And in this case, we almost even lift it up here. If I had more speed and more of a build-up, I actually could get underneath it. But that's a pretty good choice right there. I think we'll keep those little lances on there. That not to mention, if we actually hit someone straight on with them, we do a lot of damage. Because you can see the damage, which is based on your speed and weight, is way higher than, say, this bumper. So if we hit someone with a direct cabin shot with these hatchets, we would do a massive amount of damage. Alright, let's continue with armoring up this car a little bit. So let's go ahead and try to get the front end a little bit more nice and angled. So why don't we go ahead and actually use a wing for this? I think a wing would work just nicely since it fits the angles of the car. Although our wing's going to stick out a little bit, why don't we go ahead and remove those and try putting them on again. There is no shame in taking off parts and redesigning your car. There's a big thing about Crossout is that you need to experiment with your designs because your design will never be perfect the first time you attempt it. If it is, amazing on you, you are a dang god at that point. But that actually may help out our machine guns a tad bit since they're nice and protected. I think what we could also go for our machine guns is a little bit more of side protection here. So why don't we go ahead and strap on a bit of side armor here to help out their positioning. Why don't we go ahead, add on something like, that could work. It does stick out and it does provide a lot of protection from cannon fire. So why don't we try that? While it does look like it sticks out quite a bit, you have to realize cannons actually have a very large spray area. So it actually does make sense to have quite large flares sometimes. Oop, I did not mean to double take that. I wanted to put it over here real quickly. There we go. Flares out quite nicely. And we'll go ahead and try to make sure it meshes with our car a little bit more. But these parts right here are always weird to use. Trying to actually get the angles properly on this. Yeah, so it takes a while to actually know how to use these nose pieces and other curving pieces so that you can actually get your car to stay flush with everything. So we'll go ahead and give this a couple of tries. I don't think it'll work because I think it collides with a large wheel. We can leave it like so. Doesn't look too out of place, and we still have nice firing angles on our machine guns. But I think our armor could do a little bit better as well. So let's try to add on some more frontal armor here. So let's add something up front here so that we have some actual protection up there. Let's go ahead and add on a slope as well. And let's go ahead and add on a big, large front panel here. So now we actually have a decent chunk of armor. I think it's starting to look pretty good. I don't think I'll add any more up top because I don't want my machine guns to have too much protection because I still want them to be able to fire quite nicely. But as you can see, we have moderate weight here. I've decided to use more light parts since they tend to help out a considerable amount. Although I think our back here could utilize some more armor. And the reason why you want to have some back armor is that if anyone shoots you from the back, you're going to want a little bit of protection. But I don't want to utilize too much weight either, so let's use some off-road bumpers. These are more light fittings, and they tend to help out a considerable bunch. There we go. Guards the back a little bit, separate a little bit more. I think it works. But the reason why we have our guns like this instead of, all bunched up on top of the cabin is that the cabin is a very vulnerable place. You don't want to sit your cabin there unless you absolutely have to. It's a damaging place here, and these guns do not have a lot of armor to survive it. So putting in the back gives them a little bit more protection. Not to mention that separating out the machine guns a little bit makes it so they don't get nearly as beamed by cannon fire. Now, if I wanted to increase the potential survivability of the machine guns, I could try spreading them out a tad bit more to protect them a little bit more. However, if I'm going to do that, I'm definitely going to have to armor this up a tad bit more. So let's go ahead and try that. Add some parts there, and maybe a small little narrow slope here to coincide with that angle. And I think that works out quite nicely. There we go. But that's not the end of it. While this may look like it gives all of our functional benefits at this point, we have our fuel barrel nice and protected, we have our guns nice and protected, separated out. What we actually can further do with this is that there's decor items you can attach to the car. Now, of course, decor items are going to be a little bit harder to come across, and they are a little bit more expensive, but the main benefit of decor parts is that they actually add a little reputation bonus that you can see right there at the bottom. And you can have a maximum of 25% in general, plus you can have a scavenger flag or a flag of any faction. So if you go into the blue crafting section of any faction, you generally can see a flag to be crafted. So in the case of the engineers, it's here in the white section, and you can get an engineer flag that lasts 3 days, or you can get it in any factions such as the nomads that have it as like the first thing you can craft. Same thing with the scavengers. It's a great item because it doesn't interact with the traditional EXP boost of the other stuff, and just gives you a straight raw 25% towards the faction. So it's a really nice option if you want to level through your faction even faster. So I recommend having a flag on you at all times. I guess we can also try spicing it up with some extra pipes as well. So let's go ahead and put an exhaust in our car, because of course we need that extra speed there. But I'm kidding. It doesn't actually give you any extra speed, but it does look quite swanky. We'll add on some bags, because why not make ourselves look like a nomad even. And then why not add on some headlights here to look a little bit more professional, because it does actually look nice. There also are some accessories that actually add different sound effects here for your horn. So in the case of our car, let's take a gander at what our sound, or our honking sound, sounds like. Maybe quite hard to hear, but it kind of sounds like a traditional car. Now let's go ahead and add on the rattler here, which comes from a cosmetic pack that you can purchase. And let's see what this sounds like.
You two obviously want to suck.
It actually sounds kind of nice, and actually has that nice little animation. And we also have those brake lights in the back that actually looks quite militaristic even in a way. And our headlights also have a way to be activated. If you press the L key while in combat, it actually turns it on. And you can also turn it off too. It's a toggle switch. Kind of looks nice, but they do serve a functional benefit in that they actually give you some more armor. But I think we could also probably utilize some more armor around here. Let's use an outer fender here, and maybe add something around our wheels to give it a tad bit more aggressive stylings. But we're actually getting close here to our maximum accessory limit, so let's go ahead and add on a few more, and then I think we'll be okay. So we can add on a set of headlights, maybe. No, I don't think that'll work there. Well, let's go ahead and just add on some brake lights, and I think we can call it good here. Let's put those in the middle instead. I think this will look just a tad bit better. There we go. And you can also go ahead and further improve it with paints. So if you actually go over here to the paint item, you actually may get a few paints. I do believe the engineers actually give you a few paints as you level up. So you may acquire those, and you can mess around with those a few times. But they don't really add any functional benefit, but they do make your car look a little bit nicer. So we can try just doing a basic gray paint with, say, maybe a white strip down the middle. Because why not? It makes our car look a little bit more swanky. There we go. Why not? So here we go. Here's our finished product here. Now this is just a rough test. This is just me slapping something together. But it does have some functional utility here. So let's quickly go over what we've done with this car. So we've separated the frames out a little bit so that we could store fuel barrels underneath it. We armored up the fuel barrels a little bit so it makes it nice and durable down here. We added on a front bumper to allow us to ram, as well as some slightly angled hatchets here to potentially wedge somebody. We add on accessories to increase our reputation gain, and add on a flag to further increase our faction gain. Not to mention, we have our nice guns up here that are guarded on all sides, and have nice backwards protection as well. Our cabin's forward placed in this situation because we're kind of using our cabin as armor protection for our guns, since our guns have low HP. This cabin would be put further back if you had larger guns, such as a Little Boy, Avenger, 88s, or maybe even a Cyclone, if you're feeling inclined. But then we also have ourselves a large wheel in the back to angle our car forward, or in this case, we could actually probably put a medium wheel back here, and then maybe put a small tire up front, and that could increase maybe our angle as well. And then finally in the back, we have some spaced out bumpers as well to prevent contact damage, as well as absorb a couple of cannon shots here. So let's go ahead and try ourselves in a few games, and I'll see you once we actually fought. So I should also mention that we kind of have an additional benefit here. Since we have the radar plus the radiator, our guns are going to perform better with the radiator, and we're going to be able to see the enemies more effectively on the minimap. Now this could help us with positioning, knowing where to go, but it also has the unintended side effect of making the bots more intelligent. Because the bots themselves can only see what is on their minimap. If an enemy is really outside their range, they really can't detect it. However, with this radar, they'll actually be able to go around and selectively target people sometimes, and it just makes them much more aware of the surroundings. So it's definitely a huge bonus here. I think we'll actually not try to battle today because that's a little bit more variable here. But hopefully you guys actually learn on how to actually build a little bit of your car here. I know I showcased a more of a machine gun support build here, but these general tips can be extrapolated out to majority of any builds. I mean, if you wanted to do more of a shotgun build, you could just move these guns forward a little bit if you wanted to be a little bit more precise, and that could help you out even in that case. Or if you wanted to do a cannon build, you could, throw your guns on top of your cabin itself and move it a little bit forward, and you might be going to be a more success there. But it just kind of depends on what you guys actually want and see from your build. Let me know if this thing actually helped you out, and if there's any more tips you'd like to see as well. This is only meant to be a basic build. We'll get into more intermediate and advanced tips later on, like how to do a wedge build, how to do a sideways cabin build in the more advanced sections, and maybe even potentially how to do a clan wars build, which might be a little bit more extensive later on down the lines. But we'll see until then, guys. So I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. If you had fun, and if you learned anything today, by all means, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to any one of my channels on Twitch or YouTube. Other than that, there's Discord and Twitter down below if you would like to get notified whenever we go live, as well as join the community. Other than that, I may also link down below maybe a Reddit post having a little bit more detailed explanation of anything, and I may leave a comment down below too, actually explaining a little bit more. But if you guys have any building tips, by all means, feel free to leave them down below as well. We'll go ahead and try to help you there. But until next, guys, I don't even know what the fuck that was supposed to be. Until next time, guys, bye-bye.